Welcome to the Astrology Show with your host, Kelly Fox. Each week, Kelly will give you access to the current transits that are a valuable tool which provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has through our sun sign. Understanding the current planetary influences each week can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. Sometimes events in your life may seem completely random, but there is a pattern to the order of these events, one set in motion in part by you and in part by the planets and stars in the sky and their influence on your life here on Earth. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, if you're going to get that promotion, move to a new city, or fall in love, tune in to the Astrology Show for guidance. It can help you anticipate problems before they occur, give you tools to cope with changes, and help you look forward to the wonderful days ahead. Kelly Fox is a professional astrologer and internet pioneer who launched astrology.com, one of the first and most successful astrology websites. Today, her passion lies with her new site, theastrologer.com, where she brings a modern-day approach to an ancient wisdom. Please join Kelly each week to learn more about how the planets can align for you.
Hi there, and welcome to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, and I'm going to be talking about the planets this week. And, of course, the news or the headline of the week is that we have a new moon in Libra. So we have new moons every month in different signs, and this month we have the new moon in Libra. It's happening at nearly 16 degrees of Libra. So if you have any planets in cardinal signs, and that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, this new moon will be affecting you more so. And if you don't know where your planets are, go and get a free chart wheel on my website, theastrologer.com/chart wheel. And then each week on the show, you can follow along to see how the weekly planets are affecting your natal planets. Also this week, we have communication planet Mercury changing signs. It's moving from Libra into Scorpio, so we can expect a lot more intense conversation. And also this week, we have love planet Venus battling it out with passion planet Mars. Now, Venus and Mars are the two relationship planets, and so they are at odds with each other this week. Not to mention, if you tuned into last week's show, you will know that love planet Venus is currently retrograde. So we have a retrograde Venus in tense, terse aspect to passion planet Mars. So if you have any planets in fixed signs, and that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you may find that there's some issues within your primary relationship, but really any sort of relationship, with Venus and Mars battling it out in the heavens this week. Also this week, we have another really intense aspect, and that is the Sun and powerful Pluto also battling it out, which is going to be really intense. And again, if you are a cardinal sign, this is your week once again. So a cardinal sign, and that is Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn. You might find that this week there might be some power struggles or power plays because of this because of the Sun-Pluto square that's going on. So just be aware of these really intense energies this week. And the focus, of course, will be on relationships, because the new moon that we have today, or specifically this evening, will be in Libra, and Libra is the sign of relationships. So what typically happens with a new moon, We have to have an ending before we can have a new beginning. So, this Libra New Moon will shift our attention to relationship issues. And that's romantic, or it's also business relationships too, or even with friends. So what's going to be really vital is cooperation and harmony and equality and finding balance. So we've got to consider the bonds that we have with other people. But really what we all want, or most of us I should say, is a peaceful existence or a peaceful coexistence. So it's going to be really important this week, especially when dealing with this Venus-Mars, the challenging square between Venus, or I should say the retrograde Venus and Mars, with this very challenging square. And then we've got this new moon in Libra. So it really is all about relationships and what we can do to sort of create the harmony that many of us are looking for. And then, of course, the power plays with that challenging square between the Sun and Pluto. So power struggles really it seem to be unavoidable this week. So it could be quite emotional for a lot of people. It's a lot of tense energy, out there in the news as well, that's sort of reflective of what's going on with these types of energies. And then, of course, communication planet Mercury moving into Scorpio. We're going to be seeking deeper meaning and core truths with this type of energy. And, many of us will be digging beneath the surface to get to the bottom of or the core of something. So, clearing away like meaningless data and really getting to the essence of what's really, really important. So I'd probably say there's a lot of intellectual intensity this week as Mercury, planet of the mind and communication, moves into Scorpio. So I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But I'm going to start off with the new moon in Libra. So we have a new moon every month. And this year, I think we had 2 new moons in a month, which is pretty unusual. No, now I've got to double check that back through my calendar just to make sure. But in August, we had the supercharged solar eclipse. July, we had a supercharged solar eclipse. So there's been a lot going on this year around new moons. Now I'm just going back to my calendar here, and I see that in March we had 2 full moons. But I'm sure that we had 2 new moons. Maybe not. Anyway, I'll have a look during the break at that. Maybe it was last year. But of course, 2 full moons in a calendar month. The second full moon is always called the blue moon. So you might have heard that expression, once in a blue moon. Well, it means that the second full moon in a calendar month. And of course, we don't have an expression for when there's 2 new moons in a calendar month, because that really, I think that occurs less often. Although statistically it probably should be the same, but I don't really recall it as much as I have with 2 full moons in a calendar month. Anyway, I digress. So the new moon is actually happening tonight, 8:47 p.m. Pacific time, 11:47 p.m. Eastern time. And so this is the annual Libra new moon. And new moons, of course, are all about new beginnings, because it represents the start of a new cycle. And so the lunation cycle, the beginning is the new moon, and then it goes through the phases of, the first quarter will be next week, and then in 2 weeks' time we'll have the full moon, when situations sort of come to a head or culminate. And then, of course, the last week of October, we've got the last quarter moon or the third quarter moon, and then the cycle begins again in November with the new moon on the 7th. But this particular new moon in Libra will be forming a really nice trine to Mars in Aquarius. It'll have be in a bit of a battle with Neptune because it's forming quite a difficult aspect called a quincunx to Neptune in Pisces. And then finally, the new moon will be forming a difficult T-square to Pluto in Capricorn. And I will talk about that in more detail in just a moment. But, typically with the new moon in Libra, it's all about our relationships or our relationship issues with the people that we're closest to. Mainly it's our sweetheart, but it could be, colleagues or friends or anybody that we deal with on a one-on-one basis. So during this time or during this week, especially with these really difficult aspects we have with the retrograde Venus forming a challenging square to passionate Mars, and then, of course, at the end of the week, we've got the Sun forming a very difficult square to Pluto. So it's all about power plays within relationships and new beginnings. And so sometimes things are hidden with the new moon because if you think about it, during the full moon, we've got the big white full moon which lights up the sky. So it illuminates things, whereas the new moon, we can't see the moon in the night sky. It's just very dark. So that represents things that need to sort of come about or that are not really apparent at this time. So think about anything to do with a relationship and with those other aspects that are going on this week. And it's sort of like because the new moon's in Libra, it's going to be all about cooperation and equality and justice and fairness. And the thing with Libra is, even though it's the sign of the scales and finding balance, it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone born of this sign is fully balanced and has complete equality in their life. It just means that this is what people of this sign or people that have planets in Libra typically seek, is harmony and balance, and being able to, and of course I say the scales of justice. And I'm thinking about what's going on in the US this week, all around the justice system. So, we're trying to, find the balance and be, cooperation again is the key word. And, if we consider as well with this new moon in Libra, especially with the aspects that it's making to Mars, Neptune and Pluto, are our connections ideal? Are the bonds that we have with those we're closest to, are they what we want? Do we need more compromise, or is our relationship or our relationships, are they fair and just? So this is the time to sort of evaluate, are the connections we have with others fair and balanced and equal? Are we being fair and reasonable as well? Is our partner being fair and reasonable? This is the time, not just with this Libra new moon, but with the retrograde Venus forming a challenging and difficult square to Mars, and of course the Sun squaring Pluto. This is a week to address these kinds of questions, specifically regarding our primary relationship. It's like, if we're looking for, as most people are, respect and love and trust, in some ways it's not a privilege. It's like they have to be earned. So it's like we've got to work out at this time how to make those bonds with the people we care about a whole lot stronger. And it's like, and address imbalance or, balance issues. If you've been involved in an unequal association. So it's like, it's a time to sort of reach out and look for a win-win situation. So that's what the Libra moon, the Libra new moon brings us this week. And also with the sign of Libra, it's about anything that's pleasing to the eye. So it's like beautifying our life with colours that maybe calm us, getting involved with any sort of social activities, maybe visiting an art gallery or a museum. That sort of falls in the realm of Libra. And in beautifying our immediate environment, like our home or our desk, we're looking to create an environment of conducive to pleasant interactions, making ourselves feel good in our home. Also, with this new moon in Libra, it's also a time for romance, because, Libra is the sign of marriage. and relationships. And so this is the time really to focus on our partner and ask for what we want. And it can be done in a way that where we can get to the heart of the matter, because with communication planet Mercury moving into Scorpio, it's very much about, we can move the fluff aside, the small talk, and, really get to the bottom of what bothers us or what's bothering us within our relationship. And it's a time to sort of bring things to the surface and really sort of lay it out on the table. So when you put all of these planetary energies that are going on this week, yes, there will be some friction, but there is room for honest, open communication. And we might not want to show our cards, or our hand first up. With Mercury and Scorpio, it's sort of like going to be about give and take, which is fine with the energy of the Libra New Moon. But there will be friction that does come because of the, love planet Venus, passion planet Mars at odds. So there's definitely potential, and it's sort of like we shouldn't be expecting complete smooth sailing, even though typically a Libra New Moon is all about balance and harmony. But with these other planetary influences thrown in, and especially the hard, challenging squares the Sun and Moon are making at this time to Pluto, Pluto being the planet of control, manipulation, things that are not really clear with the involvement of Neptune. So on that note, I think that's a good time to take a break. So stay tuned, and I will continue with this week's planetary energies.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hi, this is New Age Grammy winner Paul Avgerinos. Thanks for listening to OMTimes Radio, and please support my peaceful healing music with a purchase at iTunes, Amazon, or wherever you shop for fine music. Just put my name into the search engine, Paul Avgerinos. A, V like Victor, G like George, E-R-I-N-O-S. You can also visit me at roundskymusic.com. Thanks for listening, and I'm wishing you the brightest of blessings.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Hi there, and welcome back to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer Kelly Fox, talking about the planets this week. And of course, the headline of the week is the new moon in Libra. And with astrology, everything's interconnected. It's sort of like you can't take one thing by itself and just sort of not have it connect to everything else. So this new moon in Libra is forming a really nice trine to Mars in Aquarius. It's sort of a tough aspect called a quincunx. So it's forming a quincunx to Neptune in Pisces, but a very challenging T-square to Pluto in Capricorn. And of course, Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto itself, but in Capricorn, represents the higher, like the government or, a hierarchy. Pluto represents the masses of people. And when it's in Capricorn, it's like the government or, really big corporations. That's sort of like the coupling of Pluto and Capricorn. So right now, we have this new moon in Libra forming this difficult T-square between the Sun and Moon and Pluto. So, and of course, new moon in Libra. Libra is all about justice, the justice system, the law, and so on. So the new moon is forming a really nice trine to Mars in Aquarius. So this brings like a real surge of like even erotic sort of energy. So this is all about people responding on a level, consciously or not. So it's like emotional power blends with physical prowess, I guess, to help people feel really passionate about what they're doing and internally aligned, whether, as I said, that's physical or it's intellectual or what it is. And especially because, the new moon in Libra and Mars in Aquarius, those two signs are air signs. So it really is about stimulating the mind. And Mars is quite passionate physically, but it's like when it's coupled with an air sign and the new moon, Sun and Moon in an air sign, it's very much about the intellect or the mind. So, and the moon is about emotions. So it's like we're able to express our emotions with ease during this time when, these energies are in air signs. So, any sort of action, because Mars is the planet of action, so any sort of action that's taken now can be based on clear feelings. But of course, I say that with the disclaimer of there's a square to Pluto from the Sun and Moon. So on one hand, it's all fine and dandy with Mars, but then on the other hand, you've got, this incredible challenge, very stressful time affecting the masses because it's Pluto in Capricorn, and dare I say, about the legal system and because the new moon's in Libra, and then of course Capricorn is the government. So, with this new moon, it's all about, it can be directed energy. It's really good for accomplishing a lot. Because, Mars is the planet of action, and so it's all about, people seizing opportunities for action with this new moon forming the trine to Mars. So it's really a time when things can get done. It's a great time, a great week to check things off our to-do list, in the everyday work world. So many of us are very accomplishment-oriented at this time, with the new moon forming a really nice auspicious trine to Mars in Aquarius. So this energy, just with this part of the new moon, is all about action. And it will increase our ambition and our confidence, especially with that hard, challenging square to Pluto. So it's about our personal will. It's also very competitive. Anytime Mars is involved, especially with Pluto, it is about competition. And just, the Pluto and Neptune aside from the new moon, just this new moon forming a really nice trine to Mars, it might bring out the best in many people, from an intellectual point of view. Teamwork, because of the Libra influence, teamwork is really good. So, if you have to work with other people, this is a nice time to do it. Although be careful of the power plays that may come in with the Sun Moon squaring Pluto. That's the only disclaimer there around that. But really, it's a nice time just to get stuff done. Now, this new moon is also forming a quincunx to Neptune in Pisces. Now, a quincunx technically is not considered a major aspect, but it's an aspect that I use all the time. And I do sort of classify it with the major aspects. But a quincunx means that two or more planets are 150 degrees apart in the heavens. And there's a bit of friction with a quincunx. It's not as challenging as a square, but it's basically the energy of two planets are at odds with each other. So there's not a direct clash or an obvious overt sort of tension or friction or clash. It's more subtle. So there's a lot of energies that are going on behind the scenes, especially because of the involvement of Neptune. Neptune in Pisces, this energy is all about things being confusing, things not being upfront. And the interesting thing is, these energies can also represent drugs or alcohol. So things are not very clear. There's confusion. And this is generally, with this energy, regardless of how it affects your natal chart. But, you've got this whole sort of nebulous, confusing, conflicting type of energy going on, Neptune in Pisces. And so the new moon, of course, is all about new beginnings. It's in Libra. We want to get on. But there's some sort of level of confusion going on there. And if we can find a creative way to get along and make things work, that's a better way to use this type of energy. And typically the Sun and Moon forming a quincunx to Neptune is very much about, it's sort of like secret manipulations occurring behind the scenes. And it is a challenging energy. And it's like hidden feelings are lurking just below the surface. We're waiting for opportunities to spring into sort of action because of that Mars. But the emotions, because, the moon is about emotions and this is the new moon. So it's like they're complicated. Emotions are complicated and confusing. So that's sort of the energy any time that the Sun Moon quincunx Neptune. Quincunx also represents sort of like a fated quality. It's like a fated quality. It's very much about dealing with the hand that's sort of presented to us. It's also about people controlling their own behaviour in some ways, but not really understanding how they're presenting. So it's like there's a level of intuition, because Neptune is the planet of intuition and psychic ability, especially when it's in Pisces. It's very strongly placed. So we want to trust our gut instinct, but something's telling us otherwise. So that's where the confusion comes in. And the Sun and Moon, they're the primary, let's say they're the primary planets that we have that represent male, female, mum, dad. They're the archetypes of, the core of who we are and what we come from. So when they come together, they're aligned in some ways, although there is a shadow to that, because technically the moon is blocking the sun from our perspective here on Earth, so the light goes out. And then there's confusion around, because of the Neptune, there's confusion around the hand that we've been dealt with the quincunx. So there's a lot of sort of question marks with this type of energy. The new moon forming the quincunx to Neptune in Pisces. So it's like we're using our intuition, but something's blocking it. It's like it's there, but it's not really there when it's Neptune. Neptune, when it's involved with a difficult aspect like this quincunx, can be very, it's not only very confusing, but it's, we're just not clear, I guess is one way to say it. Now, just to add to this, add another very potent ingredient to this already intense mix is the Sun and Moon, part of the new moon, forming a T-square to Pluto. No, excuse me, it's forming a conjunction. I keep saying T-squared for some reason. I keep thinking about the full moon because, you know, we had a T-square to Pluto. Excuse me, the new moon is forming a conjunction to Pluto because we've got the new moon, the sun and the moon sitting together from our perspective here on Earth. And so they're aligned and they're forming a square to Pluto. Now, a square is a really challenging aspect. And Pluto, of course, is the ruler of Hades, is one way to say it. But when I see it in someone's chart in a reading, I just know that sometimes it's about forced change. It's change that happens. It's things that happen beyond our control. And so when you have the sun and moon forming a square to Pluto, it's very much about forced change that we need to sort of go along with. Now, Pluto, you know, it has this energy that is subtle sometimes, but it's very powerful. And I sometimes think, you know, with the new moon in Libra, with the Mars, there's a lot of intellectual energy going on. But with the involvement of Pluto, it seems like it's very much about mind control. You know, and that definitely falls within the realm of Pluto. You know, and basically Pluto is the planet of power. It seeks to control and influence on a grand scale. Yes, hidden, because Pluto, if you know the mythology of Pluto, as I said, ruler of the underworld, but the mythology of Pluto is that he wears a helmet which makes him invisible. So that's where the characteristic of things that are hidden, but on a massive scale, on a mass scale, Pluto is about. And I'm using negative keywords because the new moon's forming this intense, challenging square to Pluto. So hence the negative keywords. So Pluto's about control and manipulation and power, and it's definitely things that are secretive or hidden. So, you know, Pluto really is all about the hidden side of existence. So it's like secrets and affairs and behind-the-scenes manipulations and so on. But, you know, even more than that, it's about raw power. And that could be negative or positive, but as I said, because it's this tough square from the sun and moon, I'm using the not-so-positive keywords of Pluto and this aspect. You know, and also powerful experiences fall in the realm of Pluto. Things like our sexuality, death, destruction, regeneration, they're all within the realm of Pluto. Also things like powerful urges, like our will and control and obsession. And did I say manipulation? So that's like, anytime I think of Pluto in a negative sense, it's definitely something that comes to mind. It's all about manipulation. You know, I did a few readings today, and the interesting thing was that I saw, but you know, it's strange, two completely different charts, and both had Pluto conjunct the descendant in both of these charts. And so what that told me straight away, again, the descendant represents the partner or the marriage partner, or, you know, usually it's romantic, but it could be business. So it just means control and manipulation from a partner to the individual. So Pluto, it's like it's this obsessive, really powerful type of energy, and so, you know, it getting maybe not overwhelmed, but it's sort of like it takes up every waking moment. So put that together with this new moon in Libra, which is about for us individuals, it's about our relationships. But on a higher level, the sign of Libra represents the law. And if you think about the scales of balance, trying to find, the scales of justice, and then trying to find the balance. So you put all these together, all these keywords about all this energy that's going on this week. And what you've got is, in some ways control and manipulation, and it filters down to us as individuals within our relationships. It's like, are we feeling that our partner is controlling or manipulating us? And we don't really have anywhere to go. We're backed into a corner. But now is the time to sort of turn over a new leaf. And also with the involvement of Pluto, it forces us to do things we don't want to do. And it's incredibly, like I always say, it's like nuclear energy anytime Pluto's involved with something. So it's like this is a week to sort of learn the power of our own strength and what we can contribute. And like Pluto is connected, of course, it's the ruler of Scorpio. So if you are a Scorpio, you have any Scorpios in your life, you will know what I'm talking about. And so, this new moon forming a square to Pluto is very much about, it's a very challenging energy, but it's really hidden feelings. They're not just lurking below the surface, they're just sort of exploding above the surface. So, it's all about power struggles this week, and, of course, to do with our relationships. And, none of us are feeling particularly flexible. We know that we need to face a new direction, but that just seems hard to do. So it's like, try not to take anything personally. That's another thing about this week. And especially if your boss is asking you to do something or they're challenging us in some way, it might feel a little bit more loaded than it normally does. So we've got to take care with not taking things too personally. It's going to be, and it might be possible because there is a really nice trine, to Mars, a planet of action. So it's sort of like we're not sort of stuck treading water or spinning our wheels. It's very much about we can take that step forward in the new direction. We just have to be sort of think outside the box, because Mars in Aquarius is very innovative and a brilliant thinking sort of energy. So it's like if we can come up with innovative solutions to problems that have sort of been lingering, that's one way to tackle anything that's been quite difficult. So it's sort of like this energy of this week is forcing us to go in a new direction, think outside the box, get to the heart of the matter through communication, which I will address after the break. Talking about Mercury, planet of the mind and communication, moving into Scorpio. And what does that mean on top of all this really intense energy? So on that note, we are going to take a short break, so stay tuned.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Hi, this is recording artist and composer Yuval Ran, inviting you to a voyage through the chakras, a new double album of guided meditations to transform your life, a sublime musical medicine for nourishing inner peace and reaching to your higher virtues. Get it now at metamindfulnessmusic.com, METTA mindfulnessmusic.com.
I can't believe he found them.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? But did he balance on that big chair? Or...
Yeah, I mean, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Hi there, welcome back to the Astrology Show. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox, talking about the planets this week. And what a week we have. We have a new moon in the Libra. We have communication planet Mercury moving into Scorpio. And we also have the retrograde Venus in Scorpio forming a square, a challenging, intense square to passion planet Mars in Aquarius. Now, if you are a fixed sign or you have any planets in the fixed signs and specifically at around 10 degrees of the fixed signs, then this is for you. And if you have no idea where your planets are, go to my website, theastrologer.com/chart wheel and get a free chart wheel. And there you can follow along each week on each show when I talk about the planets and how they're affecting everybody and in what signs. So this week, on top of the new moon in Libra, which is also forming, as I said before the break, forming a really challenging square to Pluto, which is all about power and control and people feeling out of control. And, you know, people feeling that they don't have power because Pluto is the planet of the masses. So new moon in Libra is all about relationships. And so you put all those things together and it's about power within relationships, or the power we don't have or the power we do have. On a higher level, because Pluto is about the masses, and in Capricorn it's about the government. And then you have the new moon in Libra, which is about justice. So you put all those keywords together, you know, people feeling out of control. It starts, you know, at the core of the relationships, and then it sort of builds out from there. And then on top of it, we've got this retrograde Venus being the planet of love and money in very intense signs of Scorpio and Aquarius. So what it means for this week around our relationships with, you know, Venus square Mars, it's like sometimes our physical urges might be feeling, you know, almost irresistible this week, you know, maybe out of control. That's something to pull it down to our own sort of backyard or bedroom, so to speak. So we want something now, because also this Mars is involved with a really nice trine to the new moon. Mars is a planet of passion and action. So it's like what we might do with this retrograde Venus square Mars is do what we want without giving it a second thought and then thinking about the consequences later. Many of us might be feeling really impatient. We might be coming on too strong, typically. And then there's like some subverted sort of sexual energy creeps in and can cause maybe inappropriate actions or behavior. People will get offended. So it's like, let's not get ourselves into trouble from any sort of lack of discipline. And even any arguments that we have, especially because, you know, as Mercury, planet of communication, changes sign. So, you know, there's a difference of opinion. We've gone from being really, really affable with each other with this Mercury in Libra, and suddenly tomorrow it moves into Scorpio. So there could be some arguments and, people digging their heels in. And, in one way the new moon is about compromise, but in the other sense, it's very much about not just power plays, but very much about really having the last say when Mercury is in Scorpio. So if there's any arguments going on this week, it could reveal where our ego energy is interfering with our ability to relate. Especially, again, with that Pluto, I just can't emphasize that enough, the effect that Pluto is having on us this week. So with Mercury in Scorpio, it's very much about, I'm right and everyone else is wrong type of thing. So, if things don't go our way with this Venus square Mars, there could be, of course, some pouting, but that seems like a bit of an understatement. And just be careful, like retail therapy, maxing out the credit card is definitely not the way to go. We will feel like indulging with this energy, Venus square Mars, retrograde Venus square Mars, because also, Venus being in Scorpio is one of the financial signs, so it is important that we don't overspend or spend beyond our means or our budget. So it is most likely if you're a fixed sign, this will you'll be feeling like indulging in something unnecessary and expensive, and ultimately that never helps us feel any better. And if our libido is getting the best of us, maybe a passionate rendezvous will help. But we shouldn't ruin a perfectly good friendship with any sort of inappropriate behaviour. And if you didn't hear last week's show, I urge you to go on to get into the OMTimes archive and have a listen. I was talking all about Venus retrograde, which is really big news in the astrological world, because Venus is retrograde only once every 18 months, and that's for about 6 weeks at a time. So it's it's only about 7% of the time that it is retrograde. So it really is a big deal when that happens, Venus, planet of love and money, retrograde. So Venus in Scorpio just makes it a whole lot more intense as well. And so Venus will be retrograde in Scorpio all the way through November 16th. So this is the time when maybe relationships from the past reappear, or issues within current relationships surface or resurface, and they need to be dealt with. Otherwise, it's sort of like a make or break time when it comes to relationships, specifically if you are a fixed sign or you have any planets in fixed signs. And so speaking of which, Mercury, planet of communication and the mind, moves into Scorpio tomorrow, where it will be until October 30th. And so what that means is it's a very intense energy when it comes to communication. Many of us will be seeking, deeper meaning and core truths. We've got intense focus. We're willing to dig beneath the surface to get to the bottom of something. Anything that's sort of like trivial or meaningless or won't, will be pushed aside. So, but on the flip side of this Mercury in Scorpio, it's a time when we might be a little bit more suspicious, definitely more cynical. We're not willing to take anybody's words or ideas at face value. It could even border, depending on where Mercury in Scorpio, how it affects your natal planets, but some of us might be consumed with some paranoia, especially when you put together all the other energies that are going on this week. So, some people might be feeling pretty paranoid, and it might be good to get a reality check from somebody who you really trust. Some of us, of course, might be afraid to reveal our inner world, expecting others to guess what we're thinking. Of course, that will lead to misunderstandings. This is also a good time with Mercury and Scorpio, for mysteries and thrillers, that type of thing. So, anything that's sort of psychological with Mercury in Scorpio, that's a good use of this energy. Also this week we've got Mercury opposite Uranus, and that's happening on Wednesday. So this is interesting because when these two planets come together, it really is like brilliant breakthroughs. But an opposition is a tough aspect. So it's sort of like the potential's there for brilliance, but can we move beyond? So communication could be challenging with this type of influence. Things might feel like they're contradictory, or we can't let things slide. This is about blurting things out, maybe. So it's sort of like the potential's there, but can we sort of get to it? So that's the other thing. And then on Friday we've got Mercury forming a really nice sextile to Saturn. So this is really good. It's like if you need some mental discipline, wait till the end of the week. Attention to detail is pretty good with this energy as well. It's really good for problem solving, taking methodical approaches, and utilizing the pragmatic and practical qualities of this influence when Mercury forms a sextile to Saturn. We've got a lot of patience with this influence as well, and so we can sort of absorb and organize information quickly and, more importantly, correctly. So it's a good time for taking a class or going to a lecture where we can process the information that's presented to us. So on that note, I am going to move on to your weekly horoscope. So if you're in Aries, this week for you, it's sort of like getting to grips with your work-life balance. Will get easier because of the new moon energy, which is shining from or not shining because it's a dark sky, but will fall in your love zone, and Mercury turns your thoughts to all things sensual. And there is a lot of sensual energy this week too. So it's important to prioritize your love life. And you've done more than your fair share of work, so don't feel guilty about that. If you're a Taurus, make intelligent choices about your own well-being, physical and mental. And you can't keep giving if you're not looking after yourself. So focus on healing, rest, and recharging. If you're a Gemini, it's all fun and games until it is not. You are in a light-hearted, slightly reckless mood, but what you see as fun, someone else may see very differently. So just be careful. If you are a Cancer, relationships with in-laws could be tricky, but the solution is to find something you have in common other than your partner. If you are a Leo, rushed off your feet, it is a very busy week with fast-moving events and probably lots of changes of plans. You might think that you have to rush to keep up, but don't forget to factor in some family time. If you're a Virgo, money worries ease off a little with the new moon bringing a boost to your finances, but turn your thoughts to your social life if you can. It's an excellent time to get back in touch with old friends. That's because of the Venus retrograde. If you are a Libra, watch out for a materialistic streak, which is with what you do with your actions. But if you are tempted to put money above all else, remember that your purpose on earth is to inspire kindness and tolerance, and the new moon in your sign will most certainly help. If you're a Scorpio, dreams and imagery are important, so surrounding you with messages from the cosmos and from your highest self. So open your mind as Mercury arrives in your sign. Sagittarius, you have mixed feelings about socializing this week. You don't want to stay home alone, but nor do you have the patience for large groups of noisy people, but spend quality time with your closest friends. If you're a Capricorn, the new moon in your ambition zone brings new enthusiasm as you start to see progress towards a goal. Look around you and create closer links with colleagues and allies. Teamwork is about to become really important. If you are an Aquarian, the new moon in your adventure zone stirs up feelings of restlessness tinged with excitement. So look at the bigger picture and create milestones you can aim for. You have a huge potential at the moment, so don't limit yourself. And finally, Pisces, this week focuses on psychoanalysis of some kind. So get to know yourself better and use your intuition and your sixth sense to understand where others are coming from, which you do so well anyway. So there are some great insights this week, which are yours for the taking. So use it wisely. But just remember, your ruling planet Neptune is a little bit at odds with tonight's new moon. So have a friend or somebody you trust double check or fact check really what things are going on, because sometimes being such an intuitive sign that you are, you can at times miss the detail. So that's the planetary activities and energies for this week. The new moon in Libra, and then we have love planet Venus, which is currently retrograde, of course, battling it out in the heavens with passion planet Mars. And then, of course, we've got, the sun and the moon forming a very tense square to powerful Pluto. And then we have communication planet Mercury shifting into Scorpio. So there you have it, the planets this week. I am your host and astrologer, Kelly Fox. This is the Astrology Show, and thank you for joining me.